Once you understand how to get under the noise of your own mind, like to get out of your own way, when you understand the pathway to silence, it gets easier and easier to get there. And the sound healing is a way to establish that path.
Listen to this next Agile Vocalist episode. Agile Vocalist is a podcast and blog about sound and the performing arts with a California connection.
Melissa Felsenstein is the founder of Inner Sounds Meditation and a professional sound practitioner with over 10 years' experience. She's a self-proclaimed ambassador of rest and delights in helping others return to a calm, meditative, and deeply restful place. During these profoundly restful states, your body begins engaging in an all-systems repair, reducing stress, easing sleep, strengthening immunity, enhancing intuition, deploying mood boosters, and life just feels a whole lot better. Melissa experienced all of these benefits herself when she used sound to heal her own vicious cycle of anxiety and depression. She has spent the last 10 years refining her technique into a unique inner sounds formula, specifically designated to heal the nervous system and create internal calm. Melissa offers a 200-hour professional sound healing practitioner course where she teaches others how to become a professional sound healer. I'm also incredibly grateful to Landing Meditative Arts for welcoming us in as guests to their gorgeous space for this episode. Landing Meditative Arts is where mindfulness meets creativity in a beautiful Oakland, California space. The studio offers health coaching, open creativity studio time, classes, and more to awaken your inner creative, connect your mind and body, and move. Visit moonlanding.studio on the web for more info.
And then just taking a nice deep breath in. Hi, Rachel.
Welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And as Melissa said, we are here at Landing Meditative Arts in Oakland, and a beautiful converted space. So you wouldn't know the city was 50 feet away.
Busily happening 50 feet away. Yeah, it's so quiet and soft, and yeah, it just feels like I could be out in nature somewhere.
We could be anywhere.
Yeah.
That's one of the interesting things about this city is that there's a lot of energy, but it's very easy to slip into the trees and let nature come in. And so we're so glad to have you on your tour through the Bay Area.
Thank you. Yes.
Do you want to say a little bit about that? What you say you come down periodically and...
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Felsenstein of Inner Sounds Meditation.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a third-generation Bay Arean. So my grandmother was born in Oakland, my mom was born in Oakland, and I was born in Mountain View, which is not cool. As cool as Oakland. I was like, Mom, you broke the streak, you know? But yeah, so I have a very strong affinity to the Bay Area. It really feels just, you arrive in different places in your life, and, sometimes you were born in that place, sometimes you just stumble upon it, but you have that sense of home. And I just really feel it here with the beautiful bay and the breeze and just the trees. When I arrived here in 2015 to start my sound healing business, I had come from LA, and the first thing I realized when I moved back was like, oh, I'm a tree person. And there's really not a lot of trees, especially when you get out in nature in Los Angeles. It's, it's desert. So it's a lot of shrubs and little like trees that are trying really hard, but not really getting, very big. But here, you can stumble into redwoods, and I saw these oaks, and it just sort of stunned me. Like, oh yeah, I love trees, love being in the trees. So of course, that led me to go further north. And now I'm living in the land of trees in Portland, Oregon. And I've been there for about a year and a half.
What sound did you wake up with today?
Birds. I did. I'm staying in a place that it's actually just in the city. It's about 7 minutes away from here. But the trees, I don't know. There's a lot of birds, and they're out there singing their little hearts out. And I love it. It's one of my favorite sounds to wake up to. If I have an alarm, it actually is the Koshi chime. So
so you put that on your
I recorded it.
On your phone.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
wonderful.
that's what wakes me up.
Would you say that that's your favorite instrument? Do you have a favorite instrument?
I mean, I think my favorite instruments are gongs. I love them.
I watched your video about the gong thing. You didn't bring the gong.
Not today. No. But yeah, I'm thoroughly obsessed.
That was incredible, because the one where you played the ring of it, the overtone, where you were talking about how the overtone creates its own frequencies, I could hear that.
Yes.
I mean, that was a great video, because as a singer, I immediately heard that overtone, that chord ringing, like that.
Yeah. There's definitely, so the gongs, they're really exciting.
So in my background gathering, it seemed like there was one of your instruments is astrologically connected. I guess it's the gong. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I can go over it like briefly.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So gongs are handmade. They're hand hammered, and some of the gongs are called symphonic gongs, which means they're for a symphony or any kind of music. Or not, and you could use one of those in a sound bath as well. Okay. But it's not tuned to a specific frequency. It's just tuned to sound however the gong maker has deemed to be gong. Okay. Versus they have another set of gongs called planetary gongs.
Oh.
And these are based on the orbital properties of each planet.
Okay.
And they've translated it into a frequency. And then the gong maker, hand hammers the gong to be that exact frequency. And it's tuned with like an orchestral tuner. So you can see exactly like the hertz of those gongs. So if you think about astrology is based on the planets and what's happening in the cosmos. And these gongs are now the sound of that planet. So when Mercury's in retrograde.
Right. That's a popular one.
Right. Everyone's always talking about Mercury retrograde. You can then listen to Mercury as a frequency, as a gong.
Is that by pulling in data from telescopes? There's a whole lot of listening for, in the space profession, right? Listening for signals and things like
Right.
What's the...
Well, this is more based on the orbit of Mercury.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And then translating that into a sound.
Okay, so that's data that's becoming...
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So
I'm
they
just trying. What's the glue?
Yeah, it's
what
like a Swiss physicist came up with the formula.
Got it.
And then it's interesting because not every gong necessarily, like Jupiter isn't the biggest gong. Right. It's a 28-inch gong.
What's a gas giant? It's just a bunch of hot air.
Yeah. So it can be a fun way to. I mean, I like using the gongs with astrology, just to give myself different themes as a player, different ideas of like, what's the intention of the sound bath? Okay, Mercury's in retrograde. Okay. So let's talk about what's happening with that, and then do an astrology-based sound bath.
Mm. Have you ever been asked to do a sound bath that's that's reflective of something that's happening astrologically, like not centered on a person, not centered on a planet, but on like
the collective themes?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those are what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, for my live streams, for my on-demand community, I'm always doing these astrology. Okay. Just the collective. Collective. What's happening in the sky?
Right.
And what might it mean? And then I give a little like astrology talk, and then we like let it all go and just let the sounds like come in and give you the gifts.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. Astrology I took a long time to come into. I used to think it was absolute bullshit. Am I allowed to swear? Is it okay to swear?
I am happy to have a groundbreaking episode I get to mark explicit.
Or I could not swear.
That's fine.
But I used to just, not really. I just kind of felt like it was coincidental. Like, yeah, if Mercury's in retrograde, you look around for like things going wrong and your phone's breaking and these kind of things, right?
That's a predisposition.
Right, like where it's sort of like self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's how I used to feel. And when I started playing the gongs a lot, every once in a while, I'd have this feeling. I'm like, I really feel like playing Jupiter, and I have no idea why. I'm like, but I'm going to just bring it. Okay. And I bring Jupiter, and then always there was like someone in the crowd who was like, did you do that because Jupiter just went into blah, blah, blah sign? And I was like, no. But it was happening enough times that I thought, okay, all right, I'll start looking into astrology, because somehow I'm intuiting these things that are happening in the sky.
Sure.
And they're coming out with the gong choices I'm making anyway. Mm-hmm. So once I started to do that, it got really interesting to play the gongs, and pair it with the astrology. It became a real fascinating adventure. Okay. So my favorite thing about gongs is their unpredictability. So unlike all these other kinds of instruments, the attack and the decay of a note, right, is pretty predictable. When you play guitar, you know what the chord's gonna sound like.
Right.
When you play a gong, because of the resound, which is the ability for a gong to spontaneously emit a sound without you doing anything. So there's like almost like
it's like a skipping stone on water effect, right?
There's like a buildup that happens, and then all of a sudden you've done nothing, and a huge wave of sound has just echoed back. And it's so powerful. It's so fascinating and also to play a gong in a healing manner. It's very intuitive. Huh. So it's all about, if you were to watch some of my live stream videos, you'd see me just, throwing away different mallets because they're just not the right. My intuition's saying like, nope, not that one, not that one. Oh, this one. Oh, here it is. This is the mallet. And then you're trying to sort of, figure out and read the gong and what does it want to say today for this group, for this moment in time. And then it'll change, so it changes day to day. It can change hour to hour.
And are the mallets different sizes?
Oh, yeah.
Textures?
Sizes, weights.
The touch part, maybe it's a different material.
The contact point might be really fluffy and soft.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're really hard and more of like an egg shape.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. So there's a lot of different mallets out there. And that's just, I think that's the most, it's just this wild ride that you never know. And sometimes, I've done very similar, I've been playing for so long, you could say I've done like 2,000 of the same, pretty much the same connection with the gong. I'm trying not to say hit, because I'm trying to reduce violent language.
Great.
We're not hitting the gong, we're just making contact. We're connecting with it.
Right.
And I will connect on that 2001 connection, and it'll be completely different. It'll be completely different, which is just very addictive. It's so fun. It's supremely addictive.
Okay.
So first, let's listen. Yeah, because a lot of the time we have these preconceived notions, especially crystal bowls, they represent chakras as well, right? So chakras are energy centers that are in the body. Yeah. And people might have this idea in their minds about I'll just give an example that's very common. It's like, oh, I want to work on my heart chakra because I really want a partner and I want, a relationship and then we do this sort of blind sort of acoustic listening where we have you go through each one and just write different notes about how you felt. And it always ends up, the one that you really resonate with tends to be, the note that you really resonate with tends to be different than the one you thought. The chakra.
Oh, interesting.
The chakra you wanted to work on doesn't necessarily match with the actual bowl that you should start with, because the bowl you want to start with is the one you want to play the most.
And so is that a manifestation of the tug of war about the intellectual brain and other parts of the brain?
Yeah, right? Intellectual versus intuitive.
Intuitive brain. Mm-hmm.
Right? So intellectual has a plan.
Yeah.
And intuitive brain is, it's not even a brain, but the intuitive body.
Yes.
And the mental body. The intuitive body, it just has so much more to give you. So much more knowledge, so much understanding, vision. I feel like our intuition it's hard though to get connected to it in the world we live in. It's really tough.
It is.
And I think that's one of the biggest benefits of sound healing is, because of the way the instruments, the way they affect our brainwaves and how they slow them down, we're able to access more of those intuitive understandings. Just like when I'm, taking people through the training and they're discovering the bowl that they should work with, the note. It's the same kind of thing. It just opens this other part of yourself. And I think it's the easiest way. I've done a lot of wellness, you name it. Yeah. I've probably done it. And I think this is the most accessible way to reach these different states of, whether it's just pure rest and relaxation or it's more theta brainwave state with sort of creative insights, understandings. It could be more of an emotional healing. You never sort of know what adventure you're going to have, but of all the wellness tools, there isn't one out there where you just lay down and listen and you don't have to do anything else.
Right. It feels almost luxurious.
Yes.
It's a luxury.
Well, even as someone who has a deep affinity for music, as you do, and you don't get to go to a concert and like lay down.
No, right.
You don't get to that sort of, where you're just so deeply relaxed. And meanwhile, you're hearing all these sounds. And of course, our bodies on a physiological level, we're very connected to sound, as animals. And it affects us in a really deep way. So just to be able to completely rest, lay down, be really comfortable, have your little eye pillow over your eyes and your blankets and your, what I mean? It's not about like wearing Lululemon pants, like you can wear your pajamas, right? And just sort of laying down and then hearing these different instruments in this very immersive way. Whether it's live and in person or online, you can get very similar experiences actually.
How did you get into this work?
That is a great question. It's kind of we have to go back in time, to like 2009. And at the time, my father, who was an MIT graduate, he worked for Hewlett Packard for 35 years as an engineer. This is a very intelligent man, a very interesting man. And unfortunately, he became mentally ill very, very quickly, like severely mentally ill. It was pretty much like one day, I had my dad I was close to him. He's one of my best friends. And then the next day, like he was gone. And so it was this very extreme moment in my personal life, where I was just really afraid for him. It was very hard on the family. It's really hard to see someone so unwell and not be getting any better. And it's just the whole system for mental illness is really not conducive to actually helping people.
Right.
So I was undergoing just this roller coaster of very extreme anxiety and depression. So I was feeling, I didn't know at the time, but of course I know it now, like the grief of losing my dad, like he was here, but he wasn't here, right, as a parent anymore.
Right.
So that sort of deep grief, depression, and then this very high anxiety for his safety and all the things that were happening in my personal life. And it just kind of, the stress started to really accumulate. And my nervous system just never got a chance to recover because the intensity of his experience was just getting more and more extreme. And I just found myself just in this really dark place. And I was trying everything at the time. I was like, all right, I'm going to go to yoga classes and I'm going to do Reiki and I'm going to do acupuncture and I'll do Western pharmaceuticals. Like I will do anything to get myself just feeling back to normal. And it also was a very isolating time. And I think a lot of people understand this combo now after COVID, like the feeling of a lot of, ambient anxiety, feeling really depressed, feeling isolated, right? So I felt really isolated. I have a hard time even now explaining sort of what happened to him. And it was very hard at the time. And so it started to affect my work life. And I was working at a corporate job. I was not performing well. And I took some unpaid leave. I couldn't drive because my anxiety was too much. At the time, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I couldn't drive. So I walked to a yoga studio. And at the very end of class, which I was sitting in Shavasana, and I was just for those of you who don't know, Shavasana is the very last pose where you relax. And normally it's my favorite pose, but when you're that anxious, you can feel, that pose can kind of make you feel worse because you're like, oh wow, I can't even just relax for a couple of minutes on the floor.
Sure.
So I was sort of feeling a little angry, and the person just played a crystal bowl. I'd never heard one in my entire life.
Okay.
And I just had this immediate reaction where it was like my whole body exhaled. You know, like a sense of like, like just calm. And I don't know, I even like had this sort of a vision. I've never had any kind of visions or anything. I wouldn't say I felt like this vision of just sort of like kind of gold sort of energy and just this sense of like deep relaxation.
Yeah.
So gold, I had this sort of gold energy and this sense of like really deep relaxation and hope.
Uh-huh.
Right? It was like a beacon of light. Like, you know the story of Pandora's box?
Yeah.
Well, they say actually when you look at the translation, it was probably more like a vase. It's one of those vases that is very skinny at the bottom and wide at the top.
Oh.
And there's a theory that she didn't intentionally not actually open anything. Like she put the vase down and the vase fell over.
Oh, interesting.
And then all these, you know, these horrible things, you know, were emitted from this vase.
Yeah.
But they say like under the lip is where hope was still like still sitting there under the lip. And that's sort of what I was feeling, this sense of like, oh, this hope still exists inside of me to maybe get better. Right? Like, oh, I can relax again. This is amazing. So I walked up and I was like, you know, hey, what's this white salad bowl you're playing? Because I didn't know what it was. And she's like, oh, it's this thing called a crystal ball. I'm like, great, where do you get them? Mm-hmm. And she's like, Florida. I'm like, okay, which one should I buy? And I just bought 3. 5 days later, they're delivered in the mail. I just start playing them every day for myself. Mm. And I would just play for like 15 or 20 minutes. And then I would take a rest, like I'd get sleepy.
Yeah, sure.
Which you'll find out later when we do a little sound bath, we'll get a little sleepy. And I would just sort of knock out. And, you know, slowly but surely, you know, eventually, like 4 weeks later, I think I got a gong. Uh-huh. And then I was playing that, you know, and I was living in an apartment in LA, and I had neighbors, you know, beneath me. And I had to write them this letter. I was so embarrassed. I was like, so I'm going to buy a gong. I'm wondering, when can I play this gong? And they're like, oh, you can play, you know, when we're still at work. So anytime, you know, weekdays until 6:30 p.m. And so I had my little routine of playing my gong and my bowls. And I slowly got better. Even though my dad's story got, you know, way worse. Mm. I mean, he eventually died of his illness in a really tragic way.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. But, you know, my sort of inner conditions changed. Mm. And then I got really interested. You know, I sort of like my father, I have like that bit of a science mind, you know, and I was like, what is happening? Right. Why is this working? Right. You know, and I started like looking into it more and looking at research papers and, you know, and other people started to notice. I was back at work and they started to notice like, wow, Melissa, you seem so much happier, you know, because I had, you know, before sound healing, I was like sunglasses, giant lime headphones, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you know, just all day. Just, I want to disappear. I don't want to talk to anyone. I can't do it. I don't have any extra energy for anything besides just like the basics of my job.
So painful.
Yeah. And so it was fun to just, you know, these people were like, hey, what's going on with you? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my God. I always say I'm like a reluctant,
you didn't want to tell them.
Healer. I'm like a reluctant sound healer. Yeah, I was really embarrassed. I was like, this is so weird.
Was this like a year? How much time-wise? So you said this started in 2009 is when...
It's when my dad was sick. Yeah. I started doing sound healing like in 2012.
Okay.
So... Yeah, I mean, I had been dealing with anxiety and depression for 2 years when I stumbled upon that yoga class.
Okay.
And then I'd say I was starting to feel better within like 6 months, I was really doing a lot better. And I was very committed to my healing practice.
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, not Saturdays and Sundays, because my neighbors wouldn't let me. But my friends at work were just so intrigued because they could just sense there was a difference. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm doing this weird thing with sound. And it's like I play these balls, and they're like, well, we want to check it out. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So that's how I started.
That's beautiful. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a difficult journey, but my dad gave me a lot of gifts. Like, I wouldn't be here with you. I wouldn't be here with your community. I wouldn't be here, performing sound baths at, all over the Bay Area and Portland. So,
yeah. Okay. What was his name?
Ron.
Let's honor him for a moment here.
Thank you.
The bowls were your first instruments, and then came the gong?
Yes. Okay. Yes, the bowls were my first instrument. They're really, the bowls I feel like are what set the stage in your brain to then move to the gongs, which then are more ethereal. They're going to take you into sort of deeper parts of your, into your worlds of spirituality and emotions. But the bowls are pretty they're very forward. They're very straight on. They're head on.
And each bowl is astrologically connected.
The bowls are connected to the chakras.
Oh, okay.
What's kind of interesting about them that maybe your listeners would be interested in too is that the bowls are heated to 4,000 degrees. And then
when they're created,
and they're created, by machines. They're not chiseled from quartz rock.
Right.
They're created by machines, but it's not so exact or a perfect process. It's very imperfect. And as the bowl cools, it becomes a note. So it's not like the manufacturer goes, I'm going to make a 14-inch D crystal bowl.
Okay.
It's that bowl happened to cool to the note of D.
Wow.
So in a way, right, if you're going,
control.
it's like they choose their note. They decide. And then if you can think about where the notes could fall, unlike a piano, which has the white notes, right? And you just go all the way up the scale and each note is, tuned to a certain frequency. Well, these ones can be a little bit sharp. They can be a little bit flat.
Okay.
So the way that they interact with each other is very different from Western music.
Okay.
Right? So you could play different combinations, and because one might be really sharp and one might be really flat, they might get together in a really different way that actually sounds pretty good, but in Western music theory, they maybe wouldn't necessarily get along.
So everybody's set of bowls is a little bit unique?
Oh, they're completely unique.
Okay.
Yes.
A little bit. Okay.
This is why when, one of these babies, they're highly breakable, right? It's just it's like a big wine glass or something.
Yeah.
And when you lose one, I've been trying for years to replace the C sharp that I had. I even know what frequency it is, but I haven't found a bowl that's cooled to that note yet.
Oh my gosh.
So they're very much like, and you form a relationship with your instruments. You know, if you're a healer, you're definitely really getting to know them really intimately, and they're like your family. They're you know, these are my little babies.
Little babies, yeah. I figured.
I got 3 little babies over there.
I figured. This is a laundry list question. Sound healing is a powerful tool for doing things like balancing and restoring your digestive system, or your metabolic system, or your reproductive system. Metabolizing and integrating emotions or trauma, reducing insomnia, increasing high quality sleep, releasing flash insights or inspiring people with creativity, balancing and soothing overworked chakras, and nervous system, or boosting natural opiates, alleviating depression, which you've talked about. Which of these many things, many challenges that sound healing can help with, do you see people coming to the practice about? What's drawing them?
Well, definitely. I mean, maybe our first question is why? Sort of, why does sound healing manage to do all this laundry list of things and more?
Yes.
And, you know, how is that possible? And, you know, as we talked about, traditional sound healing is done when you're laying down. So your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest, gets to just totally relax. Especially if you're trained in sort of like how to make the environment to be very supportive of the nervous system, the props that you use, you know, how to make your body really comfortable. So if the parasympathetic nervous system is relaxing, right, and it's just getting a break, a lot of those things that we're talking about on this list are what start to just naturally heal, right? It's because it's in charge of all those things, right? And then on top of it, you've got these slower brainwave states happening. So people will find as they move with sound healing, but as they are listening to sound healing, their brainwaves are drifting into these slower states. And a lot of that just has to do with the qualities of the instruments themselves, and just the subtle difference in the volume of the crystal bowls just sort of leads to a sense of monaural beats. Right? So feeling like there's sound kind of going in and out of a lot of people call it very circular. Yeah. And this is true online or in person. If it's mic'd well and professionally, you have a mix, somebody's doing the professional mixing like I do, your live stream is going to get that quality too. And so it seduces the mind into these quieter states of meditation. So when you combine parasympathetic restoration and meditative states, all of a sudden you get all the benefits of meditation too, without the pain, right? Like, have you tried meditating anytime recently? Like, you're sitting there, you're seated, you're in pain, your body's not happy, and you're going through this entire, laundry list of just different thoughts. And then you're upset at yourself for having the thoughts because you really are supposed to not be thinking. And it's like this very punishing kind of feeling. Yeah. A lot of people in the first 5 years of meditating don't feel that good, right? It takes a long time to build that muscle. Meanwhile, with sound healing, your mind's focused on sound. And it's listening, and it's becoming more and more relaxed. You're getting a little bit sleepy, and you just enter those meditative states very passively. And that's where you can get those flash insights. You can get visions. You can fall asleep. You can snore. Some people really knock out. They have never heard me play the gong. Oh my gosh. They think it's like a prop. I'm like, no, it's not a prop, okay? I play it every time. Oh my God. Right, but the sleep is what we need because, we're very sleep deprived as humans. And so that's the why factor of how you get all these different benefits from just laying down and listening. And then as far as what's attracting people, a lot of people are just feeling really stressed out.
Yeah, right.
And they're just looking, they're desperate for ways to relax, where their mind really feels that sense of calm. Because sound healing, like once you understand how to get under the noise of your own mind, like to get out of your own way, when you understand the pathway to silence, it gets easier and easier to get there. And the sound healing is a way to establish that path into silence. And then meditation becomes much easier after doing sound healing for 10 minutes, 3 days a week. You're going to be able to meditate a lot easier, within a few weeks. Traditional meditation, will become easy.
That's amazing.
And then as far as the people that I'm hoping to work with, I know that was a question I saw in our conversations was well, who do I like working with? And I just wanted to make it clear, right now, who I really want to work with is I want to train others to be professional healers. And especially I want to diversify, the world of healing, right? So I really I offer a lot of BIPOC scholarships, both for my events and also all my trainings. Because, the more people we see, the more diversity we see out there in wellness, the easier it is for people to feel welcomed, right? To feel welcome, to feel like it's safe.
They see themselves. Yep.
They see themselves. And, like many aspects of many wellness segments, sound healing. I was driving down the 5 to come here and there was a huge billboard for crystal bowls called Crystal Tones. By the way, they're expensive. I have other ones you should buy that are not there. But they're very high quality. But anyway, they're most expensive ones out there. Right. They're Cadillacs. So on the billboard is this, white blonde woman.
Oh, God.
And I'm just it's my mission to try and change that.
Yes.
And I'm also seeing a lot of, you can literally go on Amazon right now and deliver your crystal bowls to your house in 2 days.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are calling themselves sound healers, but they aren't necessarily understanding how sound works with the nervous system and the science behind it. And, I've developed a method over the last 10 years about my specific sound baths and the formula that I use to really, because I just want to get everyone healing, right? And so it's a very mixed field right now that I'm seeing. And so I'm just really excited. Last year I launched, I've been doing trainings for a long time, many years, but I finally had the courage and the investment of time to create an actual certification program. So just like you get certified in yoga and it's 200 hours, I have a 200-hour sound healing certification program. Because I want legitimate professional healers out there in the world. So that is my goal.
That's great.
To change, the way, to change wellness as much as I can.
Okay, this is a first.
You haven't done this in your podcast yet?
No, I have not.
You sound
anyway.
So again, if our listeners want to take a moment to find themselves into their bedroom or on a couch, we can offer your nervous system a nice, comfortable position with a lot of support. And taking a few deep breaths, taking in all the sounds around us. I'm hearing some sounds, likely the people living above the space, and we're just going to include that, along with any other airplanes, traffic, and horns. We don't need ideal cave silence to achieve deep states of rest and self-connection. Again, taking a nice deep breath in. And as we have this little mini sound bath, just inviting the sounds to carry you into somewhere new. Right? See if you can invite the sounds to carry you into a brand new place inside. Taking a deep breath. And just taking a moment to notice if anything feels different. Where did you go during your mini sound bath? Just giving your nervous system a moment to absorb and notice. Is there anything you want to share? But I've done sound baths in like the most ridiculous of spaces.
Like?
Oh, just like places where, you know, someone's like walking on the phone, walking by, and there's a fire engine, and then there's, you know, someone's parking their giant big truck that, you know, and then a motorcycle comes in, and it's just like, you know, I've just had a lot of different environments to try and navigate. Yeah, I mean, but when you can have as pristine of an environment as possible, it really can help.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they happen to be, you know, quiet,
right,
when we were playing, it would have been like, you know, probably even easier to go deeper.
Yeah, it was. I was a little freaked out about it. So, but I was like, oh no, she said welcome it in, so we're welcome.
Yeah. That's why I named it. I was like, oh, I hear you.
Yeah,
I name you. And the sunlight came in, which was like hitting this little baby bowl, which is an octave, as you will know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the big G. The smaller bowls are always higher. But you can kind of hear a little. Do you hear like a little bit of that wah wah kind of thing? It's hard in the space.
What I hear is what I felt when I hear, which is the sound just kind of glommed onto me and got in my organs and
Right? It just
my
gets
feet and it went in
everywhere.
my hands.
Just gets into your skin, through your skin, right? Into your sack of water that you are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it just like, it vibrates like on a cellular level. And like you probably felt like, whoa, the crystal bowls are just like in my head.
Yeah.
Just like in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like massaging your brain.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. Really powerful. And I hope that, you know, we can just expand and open some new minds and get people curious about such effective, really, you know, delicious, easy healing.
That was inspiring. Get liner notes, guest photos, subscribe to the newsletter, and more at agilevocalist.com.